As you all have come to see, I've been doing quite a few holiday specials of this woodworking stuff, and I did the one on the Ukrainian Santa, but there was another one I decided to do as a little holiday special. This is one where, out of these pieces of Sapelle I had, given the dimensions and what I was able to come out of with it, and all the measurements I did, I decided to make a couple of blanks for Grandfather Frost. That is like a Santa Claus of Russia. And there's the old tale, and you know, since I have so many wooden bears that I've been trying to sell, and this holiday season I'm finally getting around to selling them, the bears just made me think of Grandfather Frost, because there's like an old legendary tale about how he traveled around with his bear, and on his bear sometimes had a horse or two pulling his sleigh, and with the bag of goodies he gave around. And so I have also carved a previous Grandfather Frost that's like a shelf-sitting one from the Carhartt book, Carving Santas from Around the World. But sometimes those patterns I saw on there, they kind of inspire me to come up with my own patterns just like them, to create my own little Santa figures based on them. So I was able to draw some lines into this piece of wood and come out with my own way of doing Grandfather Frost here. In the video that I recorded and uploaded yesterday, made some mentions of how I had that craft show last night. It was actually the autism banquet, and few people showed up. I made very good sales for as few people as were there, but these had been people who had been to other autism banquets and seen my work before. I mean, this was probably the first time the event was in the location it was in last night, but there's been other locations where it's been before in past years, and the last couple of years they couldn't have it because of the pandemic, but they got back to having the walk in the fall and having this in December, so it was kind of a good night to kind of get stuff together and things taken care of. So as far as a little work went in there, I just do have to share today that I decided, with all the work and all the creativity and editing it took to come up with this little blank for Grandfather Frost, where I just took a piece of wood about this shape and decided to draw the lines into it. There was a lot of work and additions it took to draw the lines, but now I'm finally going to start carving it. Mainly start carving it around the skirt here, and see just how this is going to come to make it be. And oh, little work shall pass its way to us, and I say this little time when we make our lines come in, it works together with us, and we see how Santa Claus has traditions from around the world. It was also just strange how last night, the way I had those two little Santa Clauses that were carved from little timbers, I picked up those timbers off the side of the road in March of 2020 when I was just out there taking my walk through the neighborhood, because the stores and the gyms were closed down because of COVID, and we were on lockdown, so wasn't much to do except walk through the neighborhood and find little limbs to pick up and little pieces of wood to pick up that I could make more carvings out of. And when I was out there and just about it, I happened to find those, and they were like little timbers left over from some kind of a porch set or something like that. So I decided to save them and carve little work out of them. And so those sold last night. What I'll show you all here is I have finally gotten one side of this carved right under the arm and kind of did a little slant on the back to go down the back of the elbow here. And we're going to do some of the same little bit of work here on the other side as well. So we've got a little mark to make here. And so we've got that placed there. Little work carving up to do here. Go up to the elbow from the skirt seam, and if this knife hasn't dulled out, which I don't know whether it has, it might have, but I'm not really sure. I don't really know, but we are coming along that way. Got a little place to make in the front of the elbow too, to come along the other way here. And sometimes I think I probably try to chip off a little bit too much for one stroke of the knife. So we're getting this in the best way we can. And finally, we're going to hopefully come out, get it a little thinned out on the other side here, and make it so Santa is going to be good and brave and strong. I say, my, this work is just taking its way on us. I mean, there's a lot of work to do here, but we manage it all right. We kind of seem to get through with it, get it through us, and get it out in the world, so it kind of makes us all see a little better, feel a little better. But one thing I'll tell you about those two timber Santas, one of them was red and the other one was green. They were painted different colors, and I was happy to get them sold, afraid I never would, but when they did get sold, it turned out for the better, because somebody purchased them and said it could be like Saint Nick and a traveling companion there. So we talked about how in old folklore legends, Santa had a lot of traveling companions, or Saint Nick, whatever you want to call him. Finally, we got this much done. There's another little step we will take. We will take the same step on this one as well. Want to tell you a story or two about some of St. Nick's traveling companions. Through history, there was the Dutch legend about Krampus, and I've done a little research on that. Of course, there had been that movie on Krampus before. I've never watched it, never seen it, but I did sometimes, whenever I was out at Kroger's around holidays in past years, see the DVD of it out on a discount DVD rack, and sometimes it probably caught my attention just because I saw it there, but never really cared to buy it or watch it. Of course, these days, people don't really watch DVDs anymore. They just watch stuff through all this online TV stuff. YouTube TV, Netflix. I don't fool with all that stuff. And so, we're coming down with this little skirt of the Santa. Make it so it's going to look a little brave and neat. Make it so it's going to be brighter to see, oh, the work it has in it. And so finally we come down to the point where we make these final little cuts right behind the elbow in the back and right below the elbow in the front. I've always heard those death stories. However, I'll tell you a little story about Bell's Nickel, who was like the German legend of the traveling companion of St. Nicholas. While St. Nicholas went around carrying a bag full of goodies for all the good kids, Bell's Nickel carried around a switch with which to beat the bad kids. We're just thankful this day and age we don't have a lot of old stuff like that going on, and thankful to be living in a day and age where people are just a whole lot better and more sensible than they used to be. At least the people who are alive today are, even if they're much older than us, because there had also been the times like 200, 300, 400 years ago. All these old legends were still going on, and it just wasn't all that good. They all just kind of had their strange ways with the kids, making it so we all see a little difference in things. Legends have been told different ways by different people at different times, you know. And there was a mother who was writing a check last night for those two little timber Santas, and a daughter who was getting them, from what I understood. And it was like I told them the story, a little story about St. Nick and Bell's Nickel, and the mother said to the daughter, "That sounds like it's right about above your alley." I say that we got little neat, interesting things we do these days. You know, there are good kids in this world, and, you know, in my day and age, we always tried to show them a lot of grace. There's been all these old stories about kids getting lumps of coal. I tell you, I've never known anybody personally who ever said they got one, but I tell you, I heard an old-fashioned story about some UK basketball player who said that as a kid he got a lump of coal one year. And in all things, it was probably just, sometimes in my case as a kid, my way of being silly with people. Tell them it was what I got. He probably knew I wouldn't get that. So, as we know, we shine away, make little light shines, make little ways to go. Like to share things that we all hear now and then, and I tell you all the legends I heard and all the things that introduced me to the stories. Read the book by Walter Wangerin called Early Saints of God, the one that introduced me to Father Nicholas, to the most information about him. Probably got introduced a little to him a little younger, but learned the most from that. I say we're going to try to trim along the back here, try to make it so it's going to shine its way down, make it so we see a little ways to go. And so finally we got a little work in here to do. Always remember as a kid, the downtown areas of my town were always filled with lights around Christmas. Our church was close to downtown, and after church I always liked riding through downtown to see the lights. Beg a parent or an uncle or aunt to take me down that way. Tell you, it's kind of how I was as a kid, you know. Kind of kid who always had an imagination, a mind of his own, and wanted to kind of do all the fun stuff without really having a thought or being able to consider what it took for anybody else to be able to do that. We're going to go down the front here too. We already got the back now. But there were those days when I used to always not understand how much work and tiresome stuff it could be for the adults to have to take us kids to do everything we ever thought was fun to do. Sometimes, just sometimes, we had minds of our own like I did. It was often hard to understand what kinds of things adults had to do for a living in those days. Still a few things I'm kind of learning about just now. Takes a long time to process it, but at some point you get there. Coming down to making this little thing, and you see there was a little triangle at the bottom, the place at the bottom of the hands. Of all those nativities I've made, nativity figures who had hands like that, that's where I got that from, as far as making that was supposed to go, and as far as it could be. And so, when we work a long ways, we make things so that they come out better to us, make us see how bright we are, make us see the light of day. And we've come along this step here. Don't know how long of a video I can make this out to be, but I always love telling all these stories about how it was around holiday times. And you know, when I got to be in my early 20s and stuff, and I just kind of got to where even my cousins had dogs, and I'd even buy Christmas presents for their dogs. It was always my way of going about little things, doing the things I did. People wondered why that would be that way. And so I say there's a little step we got to take here. You see where we carved out some of those lines? We've got to draw the lines back in place around the little round part of the skirt here of the robe, and this is going to be a neat little Grandfather Frost once we get done with it all. There's probably going to be some places on him where we're going to paint some ruffles and paint the face and paint the beard, kind of make him out to be a good little Grandfather Frost. And so I say we've probably taken a little moment where we've carved for quite a while here, and as for this little moment, time to bring the video to an end. And I'd say this is going to be a week. I'm going to be home by myself, my parents being out of town, and so I'm going to have plenty of time to record videos. One of these afternoons this week, my mom's friends is coming by and to pick up some nativity figures she's ordered. For one thing, I'd say it's like I kind of have to keep it on my phone and you just kind of keep waiting for her text messages. She's going to text message me eventually, and one afternoon when she's able to do it, so I have to keep an eye on my phone to make sure I get it. Might happen in one of these videos I'm recording one of these days. I might be filming when I get the text, so it'll be a time when, you know, there's no telling what I might have to stop doing to get it. So, thank you for watching. Take care, and happy holidays.